I'm your host, Jason Tartick, and welcome to Trading Secrets. We talk all things money on this podcast, and we're teaching all the stuff we just weren't taught in the classroom. Nothing supports this show more than liking, commenting, and of course, subscribing. Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today we are joined by one of Hollywood's most talked about enigmas, Sam Asghari. You might know him as the fitness trainer turned actor, or maybe as the former partner of pop icon Britney Spears, but there's so much more behind the headlines. From humble beginnings to the bright lights of Los Angeles, Sam carved his lane in modeling, acting, and inspiring millions through fitness. But in 2025, he took a wildly unexpected turn, stepping into the ultimate mind game on the Traitors Season 3. In a Scottish castle surrounded by lies, alliances, and backstabbing drama, Sam got the full reality TV experience with some of the biggest reality TV stars. We'll talk about his unique path to success, the media frenzy of his high-profile relationship, and how he is building his brand and business entirely on his own on the go forward. Sam, thank you for being on Trading Secrets.
Oh, thank you for reminding me for all those stuff. That was a great intro.
That's right, man. You got a wild resume, a wild story, but that's what brings you here today. And I think one of the things we talked about, just as like we were kind of getting ready here, is Dylan Efron's been on the show on Trading Secrets, but Dylan's also been on Traitors. Dylan also is not a reality star, and you two were in the mix on Traitors. But weren't you guys in Florida when this whole recent story came out about you guys like saving people that were drowning?
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun. You know, I was out there shooting a movie, and Dylan was out there for an appearance, and we went to this golf tournament, and we got back, and then we were like, oh, let's just go to, South Beach and enjoy the beach. And then we go there, and I just hear like this lady sort of, yelling out in Spanish, and she was waving her arms, and I was like, wait a minute, like what's happening? What's going on here? I look around, and then I don't see any lifeguards. There's no lifeguards. I was like, Dylan, you're a surfer, let's go. And so they just ran out there, him and his buddy, a good friend of his. They ran out there, they dragged two of the ladies out, and then it was just like a chaos that was happening.
That is crazy.
And there was no lifeguards. It was so busy, and after a few minutes after those ladies were brought out, the ambulance came, the lifeguards came, and things like that. But it goes to tell you how important it is to make sure you're watching your kids when you're enjoying the summer.
Yeah.
Because those waves could get, if you don't know how to swim and things like that, it gets difficult. And, next thing you know, you panic and you forget everything and it was just a scary moment, but I'm glad we were there and we were able to be a small part of it. And Dylan and his friend just went out there, got them out, and they just walked away after that.
And you spotted them, though. You're the one who spotted the people that were drowning. Yeah, that's crazy. Now, with you and Dylan, have you become pretty close? And this is after the show, right?
Yeah, we're good friends.
Okay.
Like I said, we just hang out here and there after the show. The show was during a 3-week period in a castle, and you don't have your phone, so you're forced to hang out with people. And in the castle, I resonated with people that were not a reality, star or things like that. And he's my age. He likes the same lifestyle as, I do. And we're going to cross paths, and we're going to work together in other projects as well. So we just naturally just hang out here and there. It's fun.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. That is good stuff. Yeah. Did you know him before Traitors or no?
I did not know him.
Okay, so you met him just on Traitors. Yeah. Okay, I love it. That's good stuff. You're saving lives and doing all kinds of wild shit in your career path. But let's actually start all the way back when, and then we'll get to the good stuff and come back to Traitors. But you come to the United States around 12 years old, and then you play football, and you decide that you're going to pursue an acting, modeling, fitness career, right? So what was like your first professional gig that you're like, okay, what I wanted to pursue, I'm doing here in the States? And around how much could you make at that point early on?
So, coming to America, this is a thing that I always say, just like you or people that were born and raised here.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very hard to realize what you have here in America. It's not a perfect country. I get that. We have a lot of issues on a daily basis that, with politics, with everything, with society, but it makes America the country that we decide to, focus on those issues, and we're so open to it, and there's freedom of speech. So coming from a country like Iran, I always talk about this, was such an eye-opening to be here and have a lot of opportunities. So for me growing up, everything was an opportunity, whether if it was high school football, whether if it was jobs. So at this time, I was working at Gold's Gym, and Gold's Gym, I was selling memberships at Gold's Gym.
How old are you at this point?
This is probably a year after college.
Okay.
I come back from Nebraska, and I'm working at Gold's Gym as a salesman, selling memberships. And during the end of the week, bi-weekly, I was working at Gold's Gym and Best Buy selling computers.
Okay.
And then during my lunchtime, I was trying to squeeze in spring football practice at Pierce College. So all those things were happening, and I was not telling people that I was going to football practice at my lunchtime.
Yeah.
And I was coming back like 2 hours later. I was ditching football practice, coming back to work and doing all that stuff. And I got fired from Gold's Gym. They told me, you know what? The manager was my friend. He's like, listen, we can't be doing that, but I'm going to let you go. Then I'll rehire you as a personal trainer every time you want to come back, but do what you got to do. He just saw me hustling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a punishment. It was just like, I respect it, but I got to do what I got to do. I got to let you go. So, and it was a moment in time where there was a confusion of what I'm going to do. Am I going to continue playing football because I got to support myself? I got to pay bills. I got to do this. And then that's when, things were happening and I was transforming myself physically, getting in a better, because when you play football, you're kind of, you're overweight, you're athletic, but you're not like in the best weight possible. I was like 275 to 290.
Damn.
Yeah.
What are you now? 220, 210?
I would say under 200.
That's crazy.
So it wasn't a thing for acting or modeling or over anything it was, but my sister was, doing this fashion show with a local designer in LA. His name is Michael Costello.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, why don't you just come and maybe you can walk on the show. And at the same time, one of my good friends, a former football player, that was my roommate at the time, his name is Quentin Sales. He was like, why don't you just get some headshots and let me just make a fake email and start managing you? So, and that's when it really started. I went to downtown LA in this park. I got some headshots that I never used.
Yeah.
Because they were not headshots.
Yeah,
they were just
yeah.
random pictures. But I did walk the fashion show, and then that's when I realized maybe this is a place for me, because I've done theater and drama throughout high school.
Okay.
Alongside football. So it was sort of, it worked perfectly. And I was physically transforming. So it was, my confidence level was, at 1,000, and it was time to go. And that's when I started really getting into acting. And
what age is this around?
This is around 21.
21. Okay.
Yeah.
And how old are you today?
I'm 31.
Okay. So in a 10-year span, you go from working at Gold's Gym selling memberships, potentially playing football, acting, modeling, getting married to Britney Spears, that not working out, becoming a more well-known actor and reality star, and now model. This has all happened in 10 years.
Yes.
That's a wild 10 years. So we're going to dive into it. Before we do, though, I don't want to take it lightly what you said about the fortunes we have in this country. When you and we talk, of course, like money on this podcast and opportunity, when you say we need to be a little bit more appreciative of the opportunity that we have here, when you look at your parents when they lived in Iran as a younger child, how, as far as career and money goes, what type of options are available in Iran?
So,
and how far does money go in Iran?
Money goes far away as long as you have it, right?
Okay.
So, but opportunities don't.
Okay.
The difference is I wouldn't be able to do the same thing in Iran, basically. If I was there and I wanted to do acting or any, it wouldn't be. It's a monopoly system. It's just hard. Versus in America, you could do anything. You could do podcasts, and next thing you know, you have multi-million-dollar contract with Spotify or Sirius XM or iHeart, whatever the case is. And you could be a plumber, and you can have a billion-dollar business from plumbing. Those small things. Those are not available in other countries, not just Iran, but also in some amazing Scandinavian countries or European countries. It's just America was described to me as this, token that was kind of like a dream. The American dream, you know, a lot of people say it's dead. I don't think so, because as long as you work, it pays back. And it's only proven to me. Yeah. And it's just something that never fails. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be able to do that. And there's never a competition. Like, if you're doing the same thing as me, it could be a healthy competition. It's not like one of us is the only person that's going to succeed.
Sure.
We can both succeed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I love about this country.
When you say monopoly, are just most businesses run by the government then over there?
You know, I haven't been there in a long time, but the government is very, you know, hands-on with everything, especially when it comes to entertainment, sports. And, you know, I have friends that fled the country because they were so popular as, you know, soccer players, and they had to leave everything behind just because they opened their mouth against the government, because they don't want somebody to become powerful just in case they want to take over, whatever the case is.
Interesting.
It's sort of a, you know, a dictatorship. And you know, I know many people that went to school to become a doctor, and all they have available is to, you know, work at Uber. There's nothing wrong with that, but, you know, there it goes to tell you, no matter how hard you work, there's going to be a moment where you might not be able to succeed.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I think it's good to like shed some light on
this
that.
This is just the government, not the people.
Right. Just the government, not the people.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was 12 years old, you come here, and then we fast forward to 21 years old. So that's around 2015 or so. Yeah. Just curiosity, when you're working at Gold's Gym, selling memberships, how much money can you make in a role like that?
You know what? I don't remember, but it wasn't much. It was just paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And especially me, I was working multiple jobs. But it wasn't about the money. It was a responsibility, because, you know, I had people that were so close to me that didn't make it to the U.S. And I wanted to make something out of myself. So, you know, if you're doing 10 things at once, one of them is going to hit, one of them is going to catch. Gold's Gym, I would say roughly around $2,000-$3,000 a month if it was a full-time job. And then if you did hit the bonus, was 50 membership. Plus, if you sign people up, you would get an extra 500. Yeah. But I was doing really well at that, and I don't remember what it was, but at Best Buy was also a sales job, which I was also doing really well, and I was, you know, number 1 or 2 in the country as far as sales, a few times back to back. But that's what it was about. It was about, you know, working those jobs, taking advantage of whatever there was at that moment, and really just trying my best.
Yeah. So what happened in that 1 year time frame? So 2016, you are casted to be the love interest on Britney Spears' Slumber Party. And in 2015, you're doing Best Buy and you're working at Gold's Gym. And that 1 year, what did you do professionally from a modeling and acting career that got you to a point where you're getting called to be Britney Spears' love interest in a music video? Because that's a big jump in a year.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump. But a lot happened in that 1 year. The second I started focusing on, you know, the entertainment industry, most actors start with commercial. And that's what I started. I got a commercial agent, and I started auditioning for commercials that make a lot of money, by the way.
Give me an example of a commercial.
The first audition I ever did, I booked, was Toyota Prius commercial, but it was a Super Bowl commercial.
Dope. Your first one was a Super Bowl commercial?
Yeah, first one.
And what was your role in the commercial?
So I was a gas guzzler. I was just putting in gas, and then this Toyota Prius kind of does a little drift and then takes off, and then I just react to it.
Okay, when you're auditioning for a role like in a commercial, what do they have you do in an audition?
Just like exactly what you're going to do to film. So which was, you know, if you're going to say something about, like, if it's a Taco Bell commercial, you just say, oh, the Supreme wrap is amazing, whatever the case is. Very exaggerated, very commercial. But it wasn't long that I decided commercial is cool, but I want more out of it.
Okay, before we go to wanting more out of it, what if you land the commercial you did, what does a typical commercial like a Toyota Prius commercial pay?
I think that one was between $25,000 to $50,000 after residuals. So,
dude, that's pretty. I think that's pretty damn good because at this point your notoriety is next to, like, just let's call a spade. You don't have any fame at this point, so they're not buying your name, image, and likeness. They're buying your talent, and so you do one shoot one day, $25,000-$50,000. That's a hell of a lot more than slinging memberships at Gold's Gym.
Exactly, and sometimes that's more than TV and film.
Wow.
So a lot of commercial actors do make a lot of money, especially if you're like Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, he's killing it.
But the thing is, if you do commercial, then you're a commercial actor. So how long do you want to stay and doing commercials? Do you want to be taken seriously as a TV and film, theatrical, or whatever the case is? Mine was, I want to go to the next level.
Okay. And next level is what in your mind?
TV and film.
Okay. And what did that transition look like?
That transition was very cool, but in acting, sometimes, it takes a long time, because once you get into, getting to know the casting directors or getting to know your agent, first you got to find the agent that works for you. You can go with CAA, and that's a big agency, but you can get lost. You can go with a smaller agency that can work very well for you. But then you got to make auditions, and then even if you don't get it, they end up liking you, and they end up thinking of you, and they bring you back, or you book it, and then it's sort of like a relationship that you have to build. So it does take a little bit of time. And, during that transitional period, I was still doing some, I was never going to do modeling because I didn't want to be known as a model.
Okay.
But I did do sports. I've done Under Armour campaigns. I did Cedars-Sinai, did a whole billboard thing, which was, I was on the billboard when the Rams moved back to LA.
Okay.
So, I kind of lived my football dream as well.
Yeah.
In the acting world. That's what's really cool about acting, is because you get to do these
things that you might have otherwise not accomplished.
So, during that 1 year period before that music video, I did a lot. And I also did another music video that was my first opening to the pop culture, was Fifth Harmony, which was like this. It was called Work From Home. It was Fifth Harmony. It was like a bunch of like construction guys working, and we did that, and that one was pretty cool, and it hit social media pretty well as well. So it was a cool moment, but there was a moment of time where it was enough doing music videos as well, because I wanted to go to the next level.
Right. It's always just wanting to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's continue to stay hungry and stay doing what you want to do. So you're in commercials. You then want to get into acting. You then get into music videos. Within this year time period, before you get the big call to go on Britney Spears' music video, how much do you think you're making in this entertainment field, would you say?
At the same time, I was training people as well.
So you're hustling. You're doing like 6 things.
I think that's always, no matter how much the paycheck is going to be, I'm always going to occupy my time, because there's a responsibility that I have now. And the responsibility is I have this opportunity, and if I let it go to waste, I'm kind of being ungrateful.
Yeah.
And because I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to have these opportunities. I'm not supposed to, it's not supposed to just happen. I have to figure out how to deal with the guilt, because, at the end of the day, you do become lucky. You do get lucky, and you put in the work, obviously. But if those things go together, then miracles happen. So there's a guilt that I have to feel with, which, I have cousins that were close to me from Iran that never made it here, and their lives are completely different.
Wow.
And they had a lot more potential than I did.
Wow.
So within that, there's always going to be that hustle and that fire.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I mean, I was still training clients in the morning, and that was the best. It was my waiter job. A lot of actors have waiter jobs.
Yeah.
And I was, getting up in the morning from 6 a.m. till 12 in the afternoon. I was knocking out 5-6 clients a day, having a full-time training job, then going into acting classes and training myself, whatever the case was, stunt training, and doing all that stuff just in case I book something. So I'm ready for it.
And so just based on what you're saying with the commercial 25, you're probably making just over $100,000 or so grinding all these jobs at 21.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And when you your goal is to go from commercial acting to then get into acting, before the music video, did you land an acting role?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple TV shows. I did music videos. I was doing really well with, print jobs as well.
Yeah.
But
wait, what'd you call them? What'd you call
print jobs?
What's a print job?
Print is if you book something that goes into print, like a modeling job.
Okay.
I was signed to Wilhelmina, which was a really high modeling agency, and I was getting a lot of offers from.
Give me an example of a print job, like
for
going
example,
to Vogue or something.
No, that's more, magazines. That's press. We're not talking about that. Let's say Under Armour. Under Armour wanted to, release this winter collection, and that was a print job. So that was like a modeling campaign, but it was on the sports side, which was, aligned with my future and what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And it paid well. I mean, decent.
Like
But
like 10,000. I don't have. I'm just.
I think I would say something like that. I don't
makes
remember
sense.
exactly.
Yeah, but around
You
there,
know,
yeah.
but you end up paying, your agents and your managers,
It's
which
true.
is really good.
Yeah.
I want them to make
Of course.
millions of dollars because that means I'm going to make a lot more money.
Yeah. That's true.
You
That's
know?
right. They keep making money, you get more deals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it was between that, but it was never about the money.
Yeah.
It was more about the resume and how I can go to the next level and how I could book, or at least make an impression on the person that's booking so
Yeah.
they can bring me in later.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So then for everyone listening to this, Sam, you have a very, very humble, down to earth energy about you. So I feel comfortable saying this. I know this is your ex-wife, but when I was in 5th grade, like Britney Spears was like, that was my crush. I had my first CD cover and it's Britney Spears. And then you get a call to be her love interest. In the spirit of just like transparency, we were like, holy shit. Like I'm taking on, I went from doing a Toyota Prius commercial, from working at a gym, not knowing what I'm gonna do. And now I'm getting called to do Britney Spears music video as her love interest. Like that had to be a pinch me moment.
Yeah, definitely it was. I mean, I wasn't my sisters and people that grew up in that moment of time where she was at her peak.
Yeah.
They were definitely fans, and I think one of my cousins even had like a poster of her.
Yeah.
But I wasn't too familiar with the music myself.
Interesting.
I as a little young boy, you're not gonna grow up listening to pop culture music or getting into that. But it was really cool. It was a good moment. But there was a moment between the conversation between me and my agent and my mentor if I was going to do a music video or not, because at the time they had asked me if I want to do a music video for an A-list pop star.
Okay.
They didn't disclose it.
Oh, interesting.
It was sort of like, hush hush about it.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what, I've done my music video and we would like to focus on TV and film if that's the case, because music videos don't pay much. And
what is a music like on average? Like what's a music video like this
maybe
pay?
It's SAG minimum, so I don't know what the numbers are, but maybe $1,000, $2,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Nothing crazy, but
Yeah.
it wasn't about the money. It was about the vision. And if you look the way I do, and you're a personal trainer, and then you end up taking on cheesy projects, then you might be, known
Diminishing
as
your
cheesy.
brand,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that was the case. We were trying to roughen me up, go on the gritty side and do TV and film and get away from the modeling stuff. So the whole focus was on that. And then my friend, my mentor, his name is Maxi, that does makeup and hair, been in the industry for a very long time. He said, I'm actually working on the music video. You should do it just for fun. Why not? So that's when I got into the music video, and it was fun. It was,
And you still, until the day you showed up for that music video, you didn't know who the pop star was going to be.
No, I obviously when I found the name, I knew who she was, but
Yeah.
I didn't, I wasn't too familiar with her career or her music or anything like that. Just because it wasn't cool to, listen to that type of stuff as a young man growing up for whatever reason.
Yeah, for sure. That's a wild move. And when you cast for a role like that, did you know it was going to be her love interest, or do you just know that it's going to be a role of some sort?
It was like the opposite lead or love interest or whatever
Yeah.
they called it. They just never disclosed who the person was going to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So you do that shoot. It goes well. The story's all online. You give her your number. You go back to work. You guys don't really connect for a little while.
Yeah, I
Until
just go
after
back
that.
to real life. One thing about me is I get thrilled, but I like to be as professional as possible.
Yeah.
So, whatever happens, I'm excited, but also I had to build this mentality in
Yeah.
sports and in entertainment is you do your best job as you can do, and then you got to leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't think about it. You can't, I could have done it better. That's going to, hurt you because obviously you look in the mirror, you don't think of yourself as something, but other people think of you, that mentality I built was, walking away from that music video. It was really cool. Great opportunity. Whatever happens, happen.
Okay. And so then you go back and now you're going full speed into acting.
Yeah.
And in this time period between Britney reaching back out to you and you pursuing your career full force, was there any like moment professionally or like big opportunity you got within that 5 months or 6 months that you're like, I won't forget that one. It was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that happened financially. I think one of the best things that happened was throughout my connections I've made and the social media that I've made.
Yeah.
Putting out inspirational videos for fitness. There was a supplement company that sponsored me for it was like a year contract, which was really good amount of money. And at that time, and I was really grateful for that because it was going to only, help my dreams come true.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to work hourly to make money like that. So it was my first time that I used my social media and used the platform to do something that was natural.
Yeah.
I've had offers at that time where it was like, oh, post this thing. But it was like, okay, it's not very natural.
It's not something you're using or doing anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not an influencer, but if it's something that I'm already doing and you're not asking me to post a product, you're asking me to post about me.
Yeah.
And then you want to just sponsor me, it was a really cool moment to, have that opportunity to work with those people. It was a company called First Form, and they're out in Missouri.
Yeah.
And, they do a good job. And my brand aligned with their brand, and at that time was quite a lifesaver for me.
Yeah.
Because, I was going through all this stuff, and then now, I'm dating somebody, and, dating it costs money, and you have to go on dates, you have to look your best, you have to buy outfits.
Yeah.
So it was a good moment for that opportunity to come.
That's really cool. All right. So one article I read was in People, and I think they had said that maybe you admitted that, you guys being married might have kickstarted your acting career.
Yes.
But I want to take a different approach to it because people always look at one side. I want to take the other approach of it. So you're independently successful. You're a hustler. You're working your ass off. 6 different jobs, commercials, music videos, acting classes, acting. You're becoming a fitness instructor, fitness influencer. So you're doing these things that are building your brand. Yeah. And when you start dating someone that has that type of celebrity, I'm sure it helps. In this article, it says it helps. But I also have to imagine there are certain restrictions to what you can do and when you can do it, just because if you can't make a mistake, that might impact her.
Sure.
So was there from a career perspective, anything you had to kind of adjust or take maybe different directions? Because, right? Because I think people only look at, it might have propelled, but also it might have put you in a position where you had to adjust things too, because you're worried about the impact it could have on a massive personality.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm always going to be grateful for the platform that relationship gave me naturally.
Yeah.
And it works naturally. I mean, there's a lot of people in the industry that have, that relationship where, it helps your career or it doesn't hurt. You can't say, oh, it hurt.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt, but I was already working very hard. I was already, acting and doing all that stuff. But by the nature and by my traits and my qualities, no matter what, I think I would have been successful.
Yeah.
But you do have to, be careful because one, with her situation and her under conservatorship, and that was one thing. And number 2 is I'm also representing somebody.
Sure.
So I have to show the best version. And then back to, I don't want to be associated with cheesy stuff, with not that commercial is cheesy.
Yeah.
That even gets harder.
Yeah. So
there's more that I have to reject and more things that I have to kind of be selective and go into that, because now I'm not, this ripped trainer guy that's doing cheesy stuff and then dating a pop star. So all this stuff is, so, out of touch for things. And I like to be right there with people. My whole thing is to be down to earth, to be, I'm always going to be that.
Yeah.
And that's just, it makes it a little bit harder for me to reach what I wanted to reach.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as far as putting you on a platform and putting you out there to the world, it helps.
Yeah.
But also it was a moment to be selective and be the best representative. You got eyes on you. You have to, be respectful and things like that, which was very easy for me because I was planning on doing that throughout my life anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with a relationship like that and then adjusting things professionally, I think there becomes a lot of praise. And I think you also experience a lot of mislabeling and mischaracterization of you're there to get the bump or benefit from her career. So I'm curious, that's a lot. I mean, and her fan base is so strong. That's a lot of noise to hear at a very young age. And I think everyone listening to this in some capacity in their world has to hear some form of noise, criticism, especially on social media, at some level. You heard it at like one of the biggest levels a human will ever hear it at. How did you deal with it? How did you interpret it? And what tips do you have for people back home that are maybe being mislabeled or mischaracterized and having to deal with like the pressures of all the noise?
That's a good question. I don't know how I dealt with it, but
you're like, I'm a strong motherfucker.
it's not about being strong. It's not about, having this numbness to the world. It's about doing the right thing, and no matter what the noise is, and eventually, not the truth will come out, but eventually it's just it's undeniable that you are a good person, you are putting the work, and then you are supposed to be reaching the same level as some other people are, just because you're putting the work. So for me, I always had confidence in myself. I always knew that I was going to reach, a certain level, because I was never satisfied with what it was given to me, because there was a responsibility like we talked about earlier. And then I'm here, I better take advantage of the opportunities that is being presented to me. But at the same time, growing up with 3 sisters and being a guest to this country. My uncle always told me, you're a guest to this country. No matter if you're a citizen and this is your country now, you're a guest. So you're not doing anything wrong. You're not going to fuck over anybody. You're not going to do anything. So I always had that mentality, and I think in order to build an empire, you need a team anyway. So why would you ever, fuck over somebody just for your own benefit? So I think if you are that, and that is true, no matter what happens, it's just undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. One thing I know you've talked about on other podcasts, we've talked about it at length on this podcast with all different types of personalities from, we've had divorce attorneys on, we've had billionaires on, sharks from Shark Tank, real housewives in New York that have been divorced and gone through it. And we talk a lot about contracts. Yeah. So, and you've talked about seeing NDAs and gag orders. And I'm curious your take now on some of these contracts and how they integrate the personal aspect, but the professional aspect with things like NDAs, prenups, postnups, gag orders. Like, what is your relationship with these contracts now, knowing that you've also been part of them and lived in them?
I mean, I just did audition for a project. I had to sign an NDA just to see the information on. So people have to protect their information.
Yeah.
When there's art involved and things that could be stolen or information that could be affected, I'm all for it. Why not? You have to be respectful of those information. But for me, my morals and my upbringing is that if there was no NDA or those type of things, I would have dealt with it the same way. It doesn't matter. So it's just, those contracts are amazing and great. But, my word is just as good as those contracts, if not even better, because at least I understand my words. I'm not just signing a piece of paper that was most likely done by ChatGPT nowadays. But, it's just, those are great. Whatever you have to do to protect yourself, prenup or anything like that. Like, my relationship with my ex-wife was that I wanted her to have a prenup. I wanted to make sure she's protected, because throughout her life, everybody, I don't know one person that's ever been in her life that didn't take an advantage of
That's
her.
sad.
So it's very sad.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure I'm the person that don't do that.
And how, I don't know, I'm getting like, just hearing this, I'm getting a little like frustrated in your defense, because you're the one person going in there with character saying, I don't need an NDA. I will still sign the NDA, but I conduct myself and my business under an NDA, whether I sign it or not. You're the one person, that's probably, like you said, not taking advantage of her. And then you're getting, I feel like, labeled as someone that might have been, and how frustrating that is. But I love what you said about like kind of the truth always surfaces, like character always prevails. And like, if they don't see it today, they'll see it tomorrow. Yep. What do you think is the if you had to think about the number one thing that people got wrong about your relationship with her, what would you say the number one thing, the number one misconception?
I think I never get mad at the general public or, fans or people that are seeing your life from a distance.
Yeah.
Especially now that I'm, not in a relationship for over 2 years.
Yeah.
Or a year and something. Looking from an outside perspective, I see, there's an age difference, there's a fame difference, there's this, there's that. But realistically, we met as co-stars. I was working, alongside her.
Sure.
And that happens in the acting world because everybody's busy. And, you're working on set and you're spending a lot of time, sometimes more time than your own family.
Yeah.
So it's just natural how that works, just like it is in the office. If you're working in the office, you meet a coworker. So it is, but also no matter what, there's always going to be people that have their own opinions. And, I respect that.
Yeah.
But the only thing that really matters to me is what I think of myself.
Yeah.
And, if I don't lie to someone or if I'm late, that's all for my confidence. If I show up late to this podcast, that's on me.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful to you. It's disrespectful to everybody that's involved,
Yeah.
In the function. But my respect for myself is I'm going to make sure I'm early. I'm going to make sure, I present myself a certain way. It's all from me.
Yeah.
So it's not really focused on, the fans or whoever. It's always going to be, for me, my career is always going to be, I'm always going to do things that's going to benefit the fans and people that are watching me. And I want to be a good example. But at the same time, it's because that makes me feel better.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What's cool about this podcast is we get to talk financial elements, personal elements, and then professional. And the thing is, if you look at those in silos, you're looking at life in the wrong way because they all bleed together. They all impact it. Yeah. And a general question I usually talk to people too is about, like, especially in this world where so many people, both parties in relationships right now, everyone's working full speed trying to build their brand or their business or their impact or their non-for-profit, whatever it is. And there's always an interesting element of professional support from relationship to relationship and how they're navigating that. As much as you felt like maybe you were supporting all the success, did you feel that's reciprocated? And what is your take on like just supporting someone and seeing both sides of it in a relationship? I think professionally, not just personally, but I think
it's important to, build an empire together.
Yeah.
So that's number one thing that you want to look into a partner
100%.
is to build an empire together.
100%.
But, when it gets really difficult when you arrive and then the other person already has an empire.
Yeah.
And other people are benefiting from it. So it was a standpoint where that didn't matter at the time. It was more of supporting, her to get to a place where she wants to be.
Yeah.
Or at least, getting the people that are not supposed to be there to not be there. Mm-hmm. It was a very difficult situation for me personally, but I think the number one most important thing in relationships are that you're supposed to look in for somebody that you want to build an empire with.
100%.
And you do that, and that way you don't have to worry about prenup or anything like that. It's like, my thing is, if I, ever do a prenup, would be you either get everything or nothing.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? You know what that means?
Yeah.
So basically you either have it all because this is all for you, we're building it for you, or nothing. It's not like we're not going to think about half.
Interesting take on a prenup. Yeah.
So, I think when you do get married, it's for the rest of your life, but shit happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad was divorced a couple of times. My friend's dad was it's very common, and life is hard. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you can't really dwell on the past and things that didn't happen or things that did happen or, wish for something better. You just have to appreciate it and celebrate the moment that you spend, the experiences that you had. It was a big part of my life, and we're just going to leave it as that. And we're always going to be, grateful for the experience.
Grateful for the experience, continue to grow and continue to move on. Perfectly said. This is a question that has nothing to do with the podcast, but I was just curious. You've been on reality TV now, you've been on Unscripted, and as a guy who's been on reality TV and has a lot of friends in reality TV, I was just curious. I'm like, I wonder if you and Britney watched reality TV together. Did you ever watch reality TV?
No, we never did. Okay. I Love Lucy, we watched a lot, Friends, and those very comfortable, entertaining.
But no reality TV?
No, I never watched it previously before
really?
Traitors. Yeah.
So this was your first go, first watch, time. First everything. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get to Traitors in a second. I do want to talk, as we're going through chronological order, through 2016, we now have a good idea of like mentally where you're at, things you're working on. 2016 to 2023 is when, of course, you're in the relationship. Talk to me about your career then. Like, what are some things for you personally that like you're super proud of, or like your marquee moments in that time period for like what you're trying to do with your profession?
During that time, it was very difficult to do certain things because I had to be selective. so I couldn't do this.
Like, what's one thing you had to turn down?
I turned down a few modeling things back then.
Okay.
And it was because it was associated with women, and I wanted to be...
Got it.
I wanted to be respectful.
Yeah.
It was very sensitive time and a very sensitive situation I was dealing with. So I wanted to be very successful and things like that. So that was at that time.
Yeah.
Now it's
Of course, different.
It's different.
Yeah, different circumstances.
Yeah. So there was a few things I had to turn down, and obviously things that ever involved her. A lot of, amazing. We're talking about like, show up to this event and bring your ex-wife and we give you $500,000 each and things like that. And
crazy.
Cars and, like Bentley and a G-Wagon and things like that, and just show up or like convince her to come. But that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to bring it up. I'm not even going to, just that wasn't going to be a thing for me. Mine was just to support. And hopefully when we get to a place where we can do that, then that would be smart to build an empire together.
Sure.
But at that moment in time, it wasn't. And that's things that people have done in her past. And I wasn't going to add, fuel to the fire.
Yeah. So your thought was professionally, I'm not going to take anything or do anything that involves Britney. And then additionally, things that are going to just involve me, I'm going to be very selective to make sure it doesn't negatively impact.
You know what? It was, it's only normal. There's couples all the time that collaborate, partner up.
All over.
All over the place. It's,
Yeah.
it's smart to do in the entertainment industry, but my situation was very sensitive, and I wasn't going to be the person that was going to bring that up at all.
Yeah.
So I never, I rejected all those things, and I was very, protective over that whole situation. So, but as far as career goes, throughout those years, I did a really good job establishing relationships with casting directors. I did a really good stuff with comedy. I did a show called Black Monday.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I gotta see
it's
it.
about, Black Monday and how the stock market crashes.
Oh
It's a
shit! I
comedy series.
find it, guys.
You gotta
How did I
watch
not see that? Okay,
It's the
Black
funniest
Monday.
show.
I'll check it.
I played Giancarlo, male stripper in that show.
Okay.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
I met some good friends there, and then I did Hacks, which was really cool.
Yep, I knew Hacks.
And then I started figuring that comedy was one of the things that I do really well with, and that's actually a hard genre in TV and film because you can't be funny. You have to have a comedic, somebody can't teach you to be funny.
No.
You just have to have the comedic timing down, and it's a good thing, and people get you respect for that. So, I started doing all these cool things and still pushing and being inspirational and helping people on social media and making, deal brands there. So I was making a good amount of money.
Cool.
At that moment in time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Now, one thing I wonder about is the acting career's taken off, TV and film is taken off, you're being selective, and then things turn and you get divorced. And so, of course, I can't even imagine the day you get divorced, how long that window was of headlines, paparazzi, noise, and comments. How long from the day you file to the day it's actually closed are you dealing with scrutiny in the public and noise?
Not too long. And again, it wasn't, my take is the public is going to do their thing. So there's no point of dealing with that at all, because if you haven't done anything wrong, if you're not up to anything wrong, then you don't have to worry about that. So for me, it's very easy because I never go down that road. So I don't have to deal with that. Eventually,
and you don't worry about it. Even though when people say stuff that aren't true, that doesn't bother you. You're just like, it's not true. You don't care. You're like not fazed by it.
You're a human.
Yeah.
So it hurts your feelings. I can't sit here and say, I don't care about certain comments or things like that. I just know it's not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So if somebody tells you something and then you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate you think that way, but it's not true. It's like that.
Yeah. Did the going through the divorce, did that have any impact on your career, your professional ability, or your castings? Did things like start to evaporate a little bit?
Not at all.
Interesting. Were you worried they might?
No, I wasn't. Because during as wonderful as that relationship ever was, and as grateful I am for the experience and everything that happened in my life, I think being, sometimes being single and having that moment with yourself, you're able to focus on your career more.
Yeah.
And when it comes to success in America, I think the number one factor is that you have to work and you have to put in the time, and there's a lot of competition. You have to put, so I think during that time, I had a motivation to only focus on myself. And this past few months or even a year, I've done more work than I ever have in my career.
Wow.
And that's not saying, now that I'm divorced and now it was because, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
It's actually, I've been working a very long time to get to this level and hopefully have a chance to go to the next level. But it doesn't hurt to put, dedicate all your time into your career. And unfortunately, or fortunately, when you do have a family, when, you are with somebody, you do have to go on dates. You do have to spend a lot of time together. You do have to focus. And that's time away from your career and your business and your things like that. And sometimes it's not healthy to pick and choose. You have to have a balanced life.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's what it takes to get to the next level. So I think I wasn't worried that things were going to go down or I was going to lose the opportunities. If I was going to lose friends and opportunities for that, then I'm just going to let that go because I don't need it anyway.
Yeah, interesting. A very, very mature perspective.
Yeah.
I want to jump to 2024. Before I do, because we're in a financial podcast, I got to at least ask with the concern, and I don't know what you can and can't speak to, so if you can't speak to it, just be like, can't speak to it, man. Sure. But with the conservativeship and some of the things that you saw of people taking financial advantage of her, what are some things that like you learned as it relates to financial abuse? Because everything that at least we see from the outside, it looks like it's like literally the definition of financial abuse.
I don't know exactly where the financial abuse was, but I learned that too much money is never good. Mm-hmm. And I learned that too much money that doesn't, make sense. Like, for example, if you do something and then randomly you get a big paycheck or something like that, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And what that opens is that, if you were working since you were 8 years old and you're making millions and millions of dollars, everybody, especially the people that are close to you, they're going to want a piece. That story is different with me because I'm a grown ass man.
Yeah.
And if I have, if I start making a lot of money and then people around me, they come up to me and say, wait a minute, can I borrow this? Or they try to take advantage of me, I'm going to know right away. But if you're a childhood star, you've been working for a very long time, you don't even know who's been taking advantage of you.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So that's just, looking from the outside. You don't even have to be me.
Yeah.
Looking at it is great. But what I learned about money is that if you do make a lot of it, it doesn't bring happiness. It brings happiness when you give it away.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So when you not necessarily donate, you don't have to give all of it away, but the whole point of being famous, the whole point of, having a platform is that I think of it as the universe is giving you an opportunity to make this world a better place. And you don't have to donate to a charity, but if you have some sort of a establishment or a business, you're feeding families, they're working for you, that you're creating jobs, you're putting their kids to school, so you are making this world a better place. So if you have that, then that's happiness, I think.
That's it. It's so interesting, like your story coming, like being an immigrant to the United States, because you're so capped on what opportunity you can have. And then you come here and it's the land of opportunity. It's the dream to make it big and to earn wealth and build wealth. And then you go into a scenario in life in which you're seeing like all the toxicity and how human behaviors could change because of money, and how the land of opportunity, if you are given too much opportunity at a certain age, actually could turn extremely toxic unless you're taking that opportunity to create a greater impact. Like who in the world gets that perspective and then gets to speak and educate people on relationship with money? And it's really interesting to hear you say, like, I'm telling you, I've seen it with my own eyes. Money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah, money doesn't buy happiness. And this is coming from someone that didn't have a lot of money growing up. And,
of course.
And, up until this day, I would like to have more money, but I know that if I have a paycheck, it happens all the time. Then if I go buy something, what is that going to mean to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's been moments I do good things, but I never speak about it. And I'm a big believer that we live in a universe. Well, if you want to believe in Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, whoever you want to believe in, whatever religion that you want to believe in, there's a higher power. And I think, if you kind of put that energy out there, you kind of receive it back. That's the only thing that's been proven to me. And it has only happened is when I've done nice things for people financially. And then right away, I didn't even think about it. And right away, I would get something out of it. It's just incredible how that works. But I'm not saying that's the reason why you should do it. It's just that it truly brings in happiness when you help somebody. It doesn't have to be financially. And, financially is what people struggle with the most. And that's the best help you can do. But just by helping someone, the universe or whatever the case is going to give back at you.
It's a great trading secret right there. Be careful what you put out, because it does come back to get you for the good or for the bad, I think, right? So we're here at 2024. You have a wild ups, downs, lefts, and rights. You're now a single man, and Hulu, Disney, ABC comes knocking on your door for Traitors. So has there ever been, and by the way, we've talked about in the show before with actors and stuff that have come on, going from unscripted to scripted is really hard. But a lot of people will say going scripted to unscripted could be career suicide.
Yes.
And so my question to you is, before you even accepted Traitors, which ended up becoming an absolute phenomenon, most watched reality show in the last year, just crushed it. Were you approached to be on reality TV, and did you decline it for that reason at all?
It's been at that point, it was about 5 years or so that I was approached to be on reality. I think ever since.
Oh, so you've been approached often?
Yeah. Dancing with the Stars and all that. But, then again, you have to be smart. You don't care about what people say. You have to be smart. Dancing with the Stars, people vote, right?
Yeah.
So and also you got to dance. I can't really dance. So at that moment in time, it was a no. Now it might be different. Traitors.
Were you married at that time?
I was married at the time, and I was it's been
so you've been asked a couple times.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
And Traitors I think this was the second time the conversation happened. And because it's a tough, you don't want to go there, but you also want to go there. Traitors is amazing TV that's not really, gossipy, not really reality stuff. So, are people going to ask about your past life? Are they going to make you the antagonist? Are you going to be the bad person? I brainstormed with a friend of mine that's my mentor that's been in reality. So if I was going to do it, it was going to be, I'm going to go out there, have some fun, and be myself. That's all I could do. And hopefully I don't, I don't become the bad guy, whatever the case is. So it was, at that moment in time, it made sense.
Okay.
At that moment in time, it made sense. And, I had a few months off of acting stuff. And I figured, let's go to Scotland and shoot this show. Yeah. And Alan Cumming is hosting it. They shoot it like some sort of a scripted TV.
Interesting.
And it's, it's quite different. It's not the same. There's no gossip. There's just playing the game. And it's really cool. And a lot of people watch it. So that was the decision.
When you think about that career decision for where you want to be, hindsight, would you have done it again or no?
I would have done it again. I think it was, I wouldn't have do it again because now the timing might not work. But at that moment of time and the way it went down and how the game was played and how I was shown and how I handled it, it went really perfect. And after that, the opportunities of scripted, not because of that, not because of the Traitors, but just the way my life is going now, it made sense.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. We're talking business here. You're the boss. You're the CEO. I'm going to do a little hire fire game. You look at the cast of Traitors. You start a business tomorrow. There's one person in that entire cast you got to hire for your business. One person you're like, nope, they're not coming on my business. Who are you going to hire and who are you going to fire?
I think I would hire Boston Rob and then I would fire Tom.
Okay. All right. There you go. Interesting. You're like, shocker, shocker. Here we go. Fire Tom. Tom gets fired again. All right. I also want you to do this exercise. You're going back into scripted full speed, right? Okay. Jim Carrey, 1990, he had a check in his pocket. It was a blank check. He wrote it out for $10 million. And he said, in 5 years, I'm going to make this in acting. It was year 4.5. He kept it every single day. The thing got disheveled at year 4.5. He got paid over $10 million for Dumb and Dumber. You're an actor. You're thinking like Jim Carrey. Right now, you got a check. You think about your career. What's the amount that you want to write on that check that you're going to make in acting in the next, let's say, the next 10 years?
Next 10 years, we go with 60 million.
60 million bucks. And in the next 10 years, how do you get to 60 million in TV and film? What does it look like?
It looks like miracle. Miracles have to happen. Miracles have to happen. And good No, I think right now, when Jim Carrey did it, was much harder.
Yeah.
But right now, there's, it's a different world, and people are making a lot more money. You're looking at Kevin Hart, The Rock. They're crossing paths. They're creating things. They're doing this. They're doing that. Now you have opportunities like TV, and then you can do film. At the time, you had to be more selective. So God knows, maybe I go into production, which I already have a producing partner in a production called PB&J Productions. Sure. And we have a TV series, so if one of those gets sold, that's $60 million. Right? I don't know what the
there you go,
but it's not for the money.
Yeah.
It's not for
All right. Well, when you give that $60 million, you're going to come back. You're going to talk about it. I mean, you have hit every single career spectrum in entertainment. It feels like modeling, music videos, acting, unscripted. You've done it all. You just said The Rock. Maybe the only thing you haven't done is WWE. You got the body, you got the look for it. Would you ever go into something like WWE?
There's been talks.
I feel like you'd kill it.
I think it would be great, man. I love WWE. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
And they make good actors. I worked with John Cena.
Yeah.
And we had a fight scene where I had a taste of the WWE on the movie.
That's pretty sick.
And I met Nikki
Bella. Yeah, she's
twin,
great.
And she's amazing. I think that takes incredible talent. I don't mind getting into that for a little bit. If the time goes right. So it would be great.
All right, maybe that'll happen. But right now the focus is casting, TV, film. That's the main focus?
That's the main focus,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, I appreciate you coming on Trading Secrets. It's been such an interesting career path. Your perspective on relationships and money and just toxicity but healthy behaviors with money, I think is so unique given your experiences. And I think it's going to be so refreshing for everyone to hear. So I appreciate you coming on.
Man.
But we gotta wrap with the Trading Secret. So it's something you can't learn from a master class, a professor, a TikTok tutorial, only from your experience. It could be financial trading secret, life trading secret, a quote you live by, but there's only one trading secret that can come from you to Sam. So what can you leave us with?
Mine is when it's low, you buy.
Okay.
And then when it's high, you figure out where it is to sell.
Yeah.
Because eventually it's going to come down and then you buy more.
I like that.
I wish I did that with crypto. What is it, a month ago?
Yeah.
2 months ago. And then I would have bought it again. But you have to be disciplined and you have to set a plan and you have to follow it.
Yeah.
And then invest in long-term, S&P 500 and all those things.
All right, there you go. We got a finance guy here too. Buy low, sell high, S&P 500. I always like at the end of the episode for me to say what I learned from you, like my secret. I think the secret I learned from you, Sam, is that let character prevail at all times. Regardless of what noise is out there, you determine who you are and no one else determines who you are. And even when it might feel like the heaviest, when you continue to be you and be the best version of you, people will see that, but it also doesn't matter if people see it because you know it. Exactly. And it feels like that has been something like your foundation has been you at the core. And through it all, it's led you to continue to succeed through all different adversity, successes, and failures. And I think that's pretty badass. So congratulations on everything. We're going to watch you make 60 million. When you do, you're coming back to Trade the Secrets. And before we wrap, where can everyone find everything you have going on?
I post, everything that I do on social media, and then sometimes the press does speak for themselves.
Yeah.
So sometimes on that.
Ignore the press, follow them on social media. That's the answer. And we'll be back to get and see when that 60 million comes in. Sam, thank you for being on Trading Secrets.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.